going to move into, I'll entertain a motion to move into our organizational meeting.
So moved.
So moved and second by Ms. Weiser. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes just 4-0 to start, right?
Yep.
Or maybe 3-0. I don't know. Okay, so we have Mr. File, our county school superintendent, on Zoom with us, and he is going to swear in our newly elected board members. Hi, Mr. File.
Hi there. How are you guys today?
Good.
So if I could get Roger and Beth to stand. And I don't know if I can get my computer to go this high, but we will try. I get you to raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Beth Weiser,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of the state of Arizona,
of the state of Arizona,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
and allegiance to the same,
and defend them
and defend them
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of trustee
of trustee
for Kingman Unified School District number 20,
of Kingman Unified School District number 20,
according to the best ability,
according to the best ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. File.
Hey, thank you.
Appreciate you joining us, and welcome.
My pleasure.
Welcome to Mr. Jax, and a re-welcome to Ms. Weiser. We'll move on to item B, which is election of president for the 2021 year. Do we have any nominations?
Yes, I nominate Dr. Lucero.
Nomination for Charlie Lucero. Any other nominations? So we'll vote all those in favor.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes 4-1. We'll now entertain a motion for vice president for 2021.
I would like to nominate Beth Weiser.
We have a nomination for Beth Weiser.
And I would like to nominate Roger Jacks.
We have a nomination for Roger Jacks. Any other nominations? So the nominations are now closed. So those in favor of Beth Weiser, please say aye.
Aye.
So 2 votes for Beth Weiser. That's Beth Weiser and Jen Shumway. And all those in favor for Roger Jacks, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There are 3 votes, Charlie Lucero, Carol Young, and Roger Jacks. So Roger Jacks is elected our vice president for the 2021 school year. Item D is to set our meeting calendar for 2021. So Dr. Dorner, is it best for the administration to keep the meetings on the second Tuesday at 5:30? Okay. Any suggestions from the board, or would we like to keep the meetings the same?
Keep him the same.
Okay.
Continued on that schedule.
Okay, so we will continue, those in favor of continuing the meetings on the second Tuesday of every month at 5:30, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. So I'll now entertain a motion to move back into our regular governing board meeting.
So moved.
I have a second, and second by Ms. Weiser. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. So we're now in our regular meeting and call to the audience. We have 2 people who would like to address the board. The first one is Mr. Boyce. Is he here this evening? Hi, Mr. Boyce. You can, if you want to talk from there, you could stand up. Whatever you're comfortable with is fine. We just do not have a podium this evening.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't going to statement, somebody encouraged me, at least, for now or hope for peace. And do I have to wear this mask?
We do ask that you keep it on during the meeting. Yes, thank you.
So far apart. Anyway, I picked school choice. I taught in the Cambridge. How many people know about the Cambridge system? I taught in Pakistan for 8 years, the Cambridge. You pass kids all the way through here in our school system here, semester to semester, but at the end of 4 years, do they know anything? I asked from the school district last year or so about how many kids were passing in all these grades, and a lot of the kids were all failing. And so many of the subjects, the elemental subjects of what we should be teaching our children. And so under school choice, with such a divided country, at least you could allow parents to choose the school that they want to send their kids to that reflects their philosophy of life. We're living in a society where we're programming kids instead of allowing the kids to go where their parents feel that they should go to the values that they believe in. And with school choice, you'd have that ability. And I would think that you would encourage the idea of the Cambridge system, where at the end of the school year, at the 12th grade, that these kids are proficient in all the subjects that they study for all these years in school. So I don't know if we'll ever get there, but at least I'm, making that pitch for that, because I think we're failing our kids. If you get kids that go all the way 12 years and they can't even basic read or basic math, what are we doing? We're just wasting everybody's time. I know somebody here that was working at the college, and they were forcing him to pass students that were not passing the subject that he was teaching. So you select for someone for a job, and they're not even proficient in the education they're supposedly have passed all their life through. So I would think that these are the elements of allowing parents to choose a particular platform where their kids are going to be qualified in whatever they're studying. So that would be my recommendation, that we would look into the idea of allowing students to be able to go on according to their values, and to be able to choose a school that would reflect the values of their parents and what they choose. And at the end of it, regardless of what school they use, they all have to pass in the subjects that they choose for their class participation. So that would be all I could say.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce. We also have Mr. Bear, who would like to address the board this evening.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members. Welcome, Roger, back. I wanted to take a second to say, take a look around the room. And I mean this seriously. Take a look around this room, because my classroom is nothing like this, nor is any other teacher in this district. We don't have the luxury of being 7 feet apart or 8 feet apart. When I have a kid that tests positive for COVID, I lose 9 children minimum. And those are the 9 kids around them, because I can't space my kids like this. This is the first time in months the board has met without being safe at their house in front of a computer. And even half our district staff is sitting in rooms. And it's not that I'm saying anything bad about them, but you're the board that's making decisions that affects us teachers and our kids. And as parents, as well as educators, you hold a big responsibility. The last meeting, Ms. Dorner sat there and she was as passionate as she could be. And I do appreciate that, as does every staff member. But when we hear the kids belong in school regardless, yet every spring I hear, why are our insurance rates so high? Well, because our staff is over the age of 50, over half. We have the very problems that this disease affects immediately. And you're not caring. You're not even concerned. Ms. Dorner told us that we have 110 classrooms with no teachers in it. Kids need to be in school so that we can educate. Who's educating them when there's 110 teachers, classrooms that are empty? There's no staff. We got a janitor or a security guard watching the kids in the classroom. That's not educating our kids. It doesn't matter how many of you can stuff into a classroom if you don't have a teacher. I can't stress this enough to you. You make decisions. You always tell us teachers, lead by example. Show our kids what leadership is. And yet, we have a circus going on. We have mob rule within our own community. I appreciate parents that want their kids in school, but we have to be able to educate them, not just have them in a building. That's babysitting. Educating is very different than babysitting. Or sitting here in a room because the board said we have to. That's not helping us. You don't face the kids like we do. We have to tell these kids they got to go down and they know they're getting thrown out of school. They're going home and be quarantined because one of their friends brought it in. We now have kids that come in that aren't telling us their parents test positive because parents don't want them home while they're sick. Well, guess what? I don't want them sick in my classroom either. Nor do you probably, Dr. Lucero, want your daughter to be tagged because the kid's parents wanted to have a day so they could be sick without their kid there. So instead they send their kid that probably has it, but hasn't tested positive yet, to my classroom. And I want you to think long and hard when you're having that discussion about that. And think long and hard as you look around this room and see how many empty chairs and how far stretched out we are. Our classrooms aren't that way. I don't care how much we hear from this building in the district. We are socially distanced as best we can. But anything more than 15 kids, I need to have desks at the blackboard to the back wall with no fire escape, which is against the law. If you want me to social distance. We need to be able to do that, to be effective. Otherwise, we're just stretching this out and it's going to last forever. My recommendation would be, since teachers are now eligible for the shot, be realistic. Stay virtual long enough for the teachers to get their shots. 2 weeks so that we don't get the disease, so that that shot has time to kick in, and then go back to school. Mid-February would be more than ample time for every teacher that wants it, go get their shot. Get it? You have the 2 weeks to have that shot set in, where we're not going to be affected by a kid that comes in that maybe we have close contact. But once we get the shot, you bring in kids that have COVID, we have to start all over if we're quarantined because we pick it up. And that's not what the staff wants either. That's not what your teachers want, and I'm sure that's not what the board wants, to pay for that shot twice when you don't have to. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bear. Would anyone else like to address the board this evening? We'll move on to item 7, which are reports. And our first report is from Dr. Dorner.
I'll make my report just brief because we have our mid-state. I would like to give them ample time, but I just want to give a shout out to our teachers, like the ones who are with us this evening, for an excellent start to the second semester. I think the virtual start was a good call for reasons that Mr. Bear stated. We did have, as I said on the 30th, an expectation of a number of positives, and I've shared that information with the board that over the first couple of weeks, we did have currently, right now, we have 21 positive cases, about 15 pending that are getting ready to close, and we always have a lot of quarantines at any given time. So we did see the increase in positivity that occurred from the holiday break. So it's a great start. The teachers have done an amazing job, and I think it has helped that the kids were at home during these first couple of weeks.
Thanks, Dr. Dorner. Any questions on Dr. Dorner's report? We have no board reports this evening. Item 8 is the approval of the routine orders of business.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Jacks. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 9, books to be on display for the required 60 days beginning November 10th, 2020. Ms. Woolsey?
Mr. President, members of the board, this novel's been on display. This will be for 11th grade and up at the high school level.
Any questions for Ms. Woolsey or a motion?
It's continued to be on display, right?
No,
It's been on.
this has been on
It's-
display.
It's done.
It started November 10th.
Okay. I'll make the motion to approve everybody. Yeah.
We have a motion to approve,
Second.
second by Ms. Young. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 10, books to be on display for the required 60 days beginning November 10th. Is it us? They weren't together, Ms. Woolsey, for some reason.
Oh, these iReady curriculum and books have been on display for the correct amount of time.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second by Mr. Jacks. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 11, benchmark education, advancing learning language K-5 curriculum to be on display for the required 60 days beginning this evening.
That's correct, Mr. President, members of the board. This is for our EL students. This would be to help them in the classroom.
Any questions for Ms. Woolsey? No questions. Item 12, approve 2021 district representatives who will participate in special education, individual education plans, and the names are listed.
I was looking at Mrs. Trujillo to see if she wanted to intro that.
Ms. Trujillo is here if you have any questions or a motion.
I'll make the motion that we pass.
We have a motion by Ms. Weiser to approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Jacks. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And Angela, the employee's not here this evening, correct? So we do not need to do item 13 or 14, but we will do item 15 this evening, correct? So I'll entertain a motion on a recommendation to terminate the employment of Arnold McCoy or other action related to Mr. McCoy's employment.
Make a motion to terminate the employment of Arnold McCoy.
We have a motion by Mr. Jacks,
I'll second it.
second by Ms. Weiser. Any discussion or questions for Angela? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 16, Midstate Energy Board presentation. Mr.
Mr.
Sherman.
President, members of the board, virtually, we have two representatives from Midstate available. It's Ben Madsen and our project manager, Chris Flores. I've given you a schedule of construction. I've given you a list of upgrades just to provide you some context, but I don't really want to get in the way of Midstate. You hear enough from me on the regular basis. So I'll leave the floor to Ben and to Mr. Flores.
Okay. Hello.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you. Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Dorner, and Mr. Sherman. Hi, my name is Ben Matson, and I'm a principal executive with Midstate Energy, and we're excited to be here. First of many meetings to talk about our construction kickoff. I'm sorry the lighting is so bad. It's not my bald head. I just at the camera. And then also with me is our senior project manager. You'll be seeing a lot of there at your schools is Chris Flores. And so we have a short presentation, just kind of an introduction presentation for our construction project. And I'm going to see if I can share that here now. Just bear with me 1 second. That should be coming up. Is everyone able to see that?
Yes.
Thank you. So again, we'll kind of just make some introductions. Chris is your project manager. Everything runs through Chris. He's been with our company for a very long time and understands school construction as well as these projects. Your project superintendent is Brian Parker. Brian's just coming off a successful project with Flagstaff Unified. And Brian will be kind of the boots on the ground as Chris, as we call it, our superintendent. And so as we work a lot of nights and weekends, Brian will be there 24/7 anytime our crew is there. And then Scott Connor, who's been with our organization since we started, runs the entire Southwest operations. You may be seeing Scott from time to time. So kind of running through our agenda here, we originally kicked off our project virtually, which was always sad to do, but we kicked it off with school leadership on December 8th and introduced our team, talked about preliminary schedule and some things, communication plans, that kind of stuff. And so that was done on the 8th. Right now we are in what we call procurement mobilization and operations kickoff. Chris and his team are working on Connex locations, which is like a storage facility where we can hold light bulbs and things like that. We're working on purchasing material. And then we have our first install teams where we're actually getting ready to get boots on the ground and rolling very soon here up on the 18th. And so we're excited about that. Right now, the high level construction is roughly 14 to 15 months of construction. We have seen some possible changes in both positive and negative when it comes to this COVID-19 situation. Our typical schedule on all of our staff is to work nights and weekends, so there's zero disruption to the learning environment. But because space has been really so flexible during this COVID-19 situation, we have been able to pick up schedule if we're willing to work some days. We want to take advantages of breaks, summer breaks, fall breaks, winter breaks, and all of that stuff too. But the schedule, unfortunately, has been kind of in flux with all of the districts we work in across the state. So that's something that we're going to make sure to keep the board updated, as well as district leadership with exactly how we're going to address it. And but we're very familiar with being flexible in this current situation. Which leads me to my last bullet point. All of our team is following all OSHA and CDC guidelines for COVID-19, which includes the correct PPE and making sure that we're masked up, gloved up. Not only are we all fingerprinted and understand working in school spaces, but Chris is really great at managing our team to making sure that we're following COVID-19 guidelines and procedures set by both the CDC as well as OSHA. So that's something we take very seriously. A high level overview of kind of what we're doing. A lot of the board has seen this before, but just to give you a little bit of perspective, we're doing a large scale LED, which is a lighting upgrade to every single site across the district. And so that's going to make a major impact to not only energy efficiency, but also the classroom. We get great feedback from special needs classrooms because there's no more pulsating light. It's going to really help out from an operational perspective and help standardize the district, let alone save a lot of energy with the new LED lights. Also, the building automation system, those are things like thermostat control. The district has really kind of suffered here with a lot of different systems, parts and pieces over the years. And so we're looking to standardize on an automation system. This has also healthy building impacts where we can make sure that we're bringing in the correct amount of fresh air and controlling that. We call that platform orchestrate, where we're going to integrate all of your systems together so that we can not only control the fresh air, but we can also make sure that they're all talking and communicating to each other, so that when there's a basketball game or a volleyball game, all the systems can work from a smartphone from anywhere in the world. And so that's going to be a big help in not only energy savings, but also operational efficiencies. The next one is called bipolar ionization. This is a technology that helps not clean the air. And this is been extremely successful. Bipolar ionization has been around a long time. It was originally developed on the Las Vegas Strip, actually, to help the smell of cigarette smoke, believe it or not. And so the technology has been used on every Southwest aircraft. It's used all over every major airport, the Capitol building. And ionization helps kind of coagulate materials together so they get kind of stuck in the air filter. And there's third-party testing on the ionization that's been proven to effectively kill the COVID vaccine. So we're not here to say that we're going to be solving and curing COVID at Kingman Unified School District, but we're definitely going to be aiding in your response to it. And these systems kind of working now together, orchestrating all together, your fresh air, the ionization is going to make a massive impact. And I think will really bring not only efficiencies, but a healthier environment to your students, your staff, your teachers, and the people we care about most, the kids. We're also doing a lot of water efficiency upgrades throughout the campuses, faucets, fixtures, that kind of stuff. And then also you'll see in your parking lots, photovoltaic or PV solar installations that we're working on right now, permitting and going through that process. You're gonna get some covered parking. Everyone loves that. So we're excited about rolling out this technology. And the last thing is, I think one of the probably the largest need, and this is when we built the project, was really where we focused, but a large HVAC upgrade project to Wallapai, La Sanita, Lee Williams, Manzanita, and Mount Tipton. There's other HVAC issues that we wanted to address throughout the district, but the savings only goes so far. If you remember, the savings is 100% being paid for through this project. So there's no upfront capital required. It's all paid for through energy savings. And so we did our best to try to pick the worst first, we call it, the worst units and what we can attack first. So I'm sorry to talk so fast, but that's a little bit about our construction update. Myself and Chris are here. If the board or anyone has any questions, we're here to answer those tonight. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mr. Mattson. Do we have any questions from the board?
Mr. President, I have a
Yes,
few questions.
Mr. Jax.
One question, I was wondering how many local firms are being utilized to do the work on this project? Some type of percentage do you have?
Yeah, we're working on a lot of those things right now, where we're going to put an ad in the local paper and go through that. The main thing that we want in a school setting is to making sure that they're bonded, licensed, and insured, and fingerprint clearance. And so our team's going to be working on looking at how can we impact some local labor. For example, at Flagstaff Unified, we did that there, had a job fair where we're looking at that. We ended up bringing, Chris, I don't know if you remember, I think it was 8 different people. Do you remember that, Chris, that we hired locally onto our team, as well as some subcontractors? Oh, you're on mute there, Chris. There you go. No,
Are we good?
Yeah, I got you now, Chris. Thanks.
Okay, sorry. We had about 5 to 8 guys. It fluctuated.
So we're looking to hire some of the local labor pool. We'll be putting an ad in the paper on that. Lighting installation crews, HVAC crews, some local trades. We would absolutely entertain that. Labor's hard right now to come by. We do a lot of in-house capabilities, but we also want to attack the local labor pool there in Kingman to see if we can't grab some local subcontractors. We have suffered in the past finding licensed, bonded, and insured companies in all areas of Arizona. I'm not just saying that specifically to your area, but we want to make sure that they follow some of the guidelines that we have for working in a school setting. So we will be getting something in the paper, and we'll be working on a job fair with regards to local labor.
That sounds great. Thanks. One other question.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about the solar panels, the type of warranty that they might have on them,
Yeah.
as far as any reductions in efficiencies over the years, things like that, rebates, those kinds of things. Any concerns about early obsolescence with solar panels?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, solar's really changed a lot. There have been some bad installations across some districts that we've seen over the course of a few years. The cost of solar has come drastically down. And the problem that you get with solar, and the biggest problem that we want to prevent is what's called overproducing. When you actually, if you right size the panel is the most important thing. I always say you want to put yourself on a diet before you go out and buy a whole new wardrobe, right? And it's no different from the PV solar panels. So we want to pair that with the efficiencies so that we're not overproducing. If we overproduce and we have to move things back into the grid, there's something called net metering, which is a whole nother topic, but that's probably the best case scenario. So we worked with our engineers and made sure that we were right sizing it. The cooperative purchase or the cooperative electric utility out there, we're working with them right now to try to determine on the rebate side. There are other utilities from APS and SRP throughout Arizona that have a little bit more favorable towards rebates. However, we were still able to work with the local electric utility to make sure that it was a financially viable project. So we think we can add to the PV system down the road, depending on if your space were to change or if utility costs are going up. But right now, it's really making sure that we're not overproducing, which is where you can get yourself into trouble. So I hope that answered your question.
That helped. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Madsen? None. Okay, thank you, sir. We appreciate the information.
Thanks. We're really excited to be partnering with you guys, and it's been a long process to get here. And you'll be seeing a lot more of us. And please say hi to us. And we're definitely going to make sure we're walking into your guys' homes, and we get that. The schools are a big pillar of the community, and man, we're just so proud to be partnering with you, and we're going to do a great job for you. So thanks for your time this evening, and please let us know if you have any more questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Mr. Sherman, do you need to add anything else, or?
No, not unless you have questions. If you would like to. Moving forward, though, you would have me or Devin give the monthly updates, and then would you just ask for Mid-State if you wanted some more detailed work?
Okay. That'd be perfect. Thanks. Moving on to item 17, sorry. Item 17 is discussion and possible action to extend the deadline for employees to utilize remaining leave balances under the Families First Coronavirus Recovery Act through March 31st, 2021.
Mr. President, members of the board, I kind of preface this at our last meeting just to say that I would be bringing this forward. A key component of this that I had mentioned before is that we would be eligible for tax credit for the money we pay essentially in leave. We're not eligible as a district for that. So I want to make that correction clear. It's also made clear by the district's legal team that we can extend this FFCRA emergency leave, but we cannot create our own set of emergency leave. So that 80 hours that was awarded to every employee at the beginning, we must go off of that same 80 hours. So if they've spent their 80 by December 31st, they cannot have any more. If they've spent 40, they have 40 left. You get the point. And then we must inform our employees that after March 31st, we cannot legally offer that emergency leave anymore unless something different comes down from the government.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Sherman?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Shumway.
Can you tell us how many employees have taken that leave so far?
I don't have the absolute value of employees, but Ms. Dorner may. Oh,
Ms. Mareski, did you have a number of hours that have been expended using the FFCRA?
Mr. President and members of the board, I apologize. I do not have that at my fingertips. However, I will certainly get that number and provide it to you. But quite a few of employees have taken advantage of the emergency paid sick leave.
Okay, thank you.
2 weeks ago, we stated 3,100 hours had been spent, but I couldn't tell you the absolute value, like as in employees. Unless you want me to go look it up on Visions, because I could do that.
No, it's okay. An email follow-up is fine. Thank you.
Okay.
If it's okay.
Yes, Ms. Weiser.
Just to get more clarity on the answer and the question, but it may be different from what she was asking. Do we have teachers that are at risk and already using up the hours?
We have a few employees that I think have used up their hours.
And when an employee is quarantined, they're using these hours, correct?
It depends on the eligibility, right? And
I-
Angela can get into that more.
And I can answer a little bit too, Mr. Sherman. Well,
Thanks.
for quarantine, because we're essential employees, if a person has had a close contact, they have a couple of choices. One is they can quarantine and get tested, and during the period they're waiting for the test, and they would use these hours. And tests have been coming back fairly quickly, 1 or 2 days. Occasionally, the lab loses someone's test, and it takes longer, but they're only using at that point 8 or 16 hours, and then they come back. And so then if they have another close contact a few weeks later, then, they might use another couple of days. That leaves enough typically, and Angela can jump in if she wants, if they do end up having a positive. So I don't think we've had very many cases, if any, where someone has run out. And we have worked with every employee as a district to help with any kind of leave or time or space that they need.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mhm. We don't leave anybody hanging out there with no way through it.
Would you like?
I'm just concerned about the continual, off and on, having to quarantine, having to check that, all of those different things that we're at risk of some teachers losing pay.
And I don't believe, Ms. Mareski, we haven't had anyone losing pay over this.
No, I don't believe we've had anybody go into unpaid status. It's been a combination of placing people on school business for a brief period of time in some cases, the availability of the emergency paid sick leave, and then there are some cases where employees have used their own personal accrued sick leave. But offhand, I can't think of anyone at this time that's had to go into unpaid leave status.
And telework options are used as well. So there's no leave needed if you're quarantining and can work. Would the board like a leave detail at the next meeting to see what exactly has been used by employee? Because I can bring that.
Yes.
I think that would be helpful, especially as we make our way into vaccines.
Okay. We do have to be clear that regardless of the numbers, we can't legally extend that leave any further. Like, we can't decide as a group to extend that to 120 legally. So just want to make that clear.
Thank you. Any other questions, or is there a motion to extend the deadline to March 31st, 2021?
I'll make that motion.
So we have a motion by Ms. Weiser
Second.
and a second by Mr. Jett. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 18, information and discussion and possible action on the most recent COVID data and return to learn strategies. Ms. Dorner, you're going to lead us in this?
No, not. I mean, I'll provide information and answer questions.
Okay. So as of now, the plan is for the district to return to a hybrid model on January 19th. Is that correct?
The plan was to hear what the board had to say on January 12th, which is today.
Okay. I thought the last motion was to go back to the hybrid.
Right,
next
unless
week.
there was a change in
Unless there's a
motion
change.
today.
Okay. So we are on item 18. Does anyone have a motion or discussion or questions for the administration?
Would you like a motion first or discussion first?
It's whatever the board chooses.
As I had some questions that I thought we need to look at in order to start this discussion. And I think we need to discuss not going back to the hybrid model yet. Dr. Dorn, can you give us we saw the email you sent out to district-wide that showed we're continuing to go in the red. Numbers are following what they were 2 weeks ago.
Correct.
In hospitalizations.
Correct.
And so, they're still going up. And so what was did you get that positivity number on?
Well, as of June 7th, last Thursday, the next data will come out on the dashboard this Thursday. We were at 552 per 100,000 Mojave County residents cases. We were at 19.8% positivity and 15.7% hospital visits for COVID-related reasons, COVID-like illnesses.
And do we have any idea what their ICU bed rates or how many people might be in the hospital with COVID? Do we?
No.
No, okay.
I know the hospital continues when we ask to be full and to have a number of cases coming through.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
When I talk to people from the hospital, they continue to have, their beds are full.
Their beds are full. Okay.
If I can add, their beds are full and the ER, they call it pod locked. They have people sitting in the ER for almost entire days waiting for a bed. They call that pod locked. Also, they are moving regular patients into the OB ward because they don't have beds.
Okay. I mean, this is concerning for the community in general. If my husband would have had a heart attack now, we wouldn't have been able to get a bed to get taken care of. And that's a reality that our Kingman community has to face, that the hospital is that full. So then can we go over the numbers again of what we went over on 2 weeks ago, the numbers of teachers that are quarantining.
Currently positive or quarantined?
Positive and quarantine, and how many subs we have available.
So I looked at the data from when we started logging in, I believe, early September, late August. We have 49 staff members that are closed positive cases. That means they've been through the positive cycle and they're back at work. We currently have 15 that we would qualify as pending, meaning they're kind of at their 10 days, but not everybody is complete on their 10th day. So they'll talk with HR. They might continue to have symptoms and may not be ready to come back, or the doctor hasn't. So we're calling those pending. There's 15 of those currently. There are currently 21 positives that are in the middle of their 10-day period right now. And on any given day, there could be 10 to 20 close contacts who are out waiting for test results. So we had around 20 positives last week, I think is what my email said. And then we have another. And so some of those closed and we added some new ones. So we're still sitting around 21 positives. As far as substitutes go, our substitute pool, as we've talked about before, we look at the number of subs who are what's called available. We have a total number, and then we have a number of those who are willing and available to go into the schools. The total number of subs available right now is 56. On hold would be 8. And Ms. Mareski, remind me what on hold means.
Superintendent Dorner, the people who are on hold are primarily not wanting to be in the classroom at this point in time for various reasons, some of which are COVID related.
Some COVID and some other reasons. Okay. Long-term assignments out of that 56, 12 of them are in a long-term sub position for one reason or another. So subtracting the on-holds and the long-term assignments from the 56, that leaves us 36 subs across the 11 campuses.
36 subs across in the whole district.
Correct. Available to cover classrooms when someone is out for an illness or a COVID case or any other reason they might be out.
I'm just flabbergasted. I'm sorry. That was a lot smaller number than I was expecting to even hear. We can have 20 teachers out just because they've got the flu or they've got a doctor's appointment and we only have 36 subs available.
Yes, this is why the slide I shared at the last meeting, there were so many other unfilled positions.
Right. I do not see where we have the ability to staff our classrooms, even in an AB schedule, until vaccinations are done. If that means it's middle of February would be early. I think we need to go, when is the, I don't have the date in my head.
For vaccinations?
End of the quarter. I can find it on my calendar.
I do have good news while you're looking about vaccinations.
Okay.
When we spoke on December 30th, we were concerned that the group phase 1B had started, but we were third on the list behind first responders and those over 75. And that it might be February or even into March. But I can tell you that we have staff members who are getting the vaccine as of now and did over the weekend. So we've encouraged the staff who want to be vaccinated to either fill out the AZDHS application or go to the Uptown Drug and get the application. Mr. Bear's nodding over there. And what we have, did you get yours? Right. So what we have found, and this is so exciting to me for people who want to be vaccinated, is if you fill out the application and you turn it in, the vaccine seems to be much more available than we anticipated. So that process is in motion. That is fantastic news. I can name a dozen people who have told me they're either scheduled or they already had it, and that's increasing by the moment because we're getting those applications and that information out. Anything from, I guess I'm not the vaccine expert, but it's only stable at room temperature, for so long. And so if somebody had made an appointment, like Mr. Bear has an appointment at 9 a.m. tomorrow, if he doesn't show up, they're going to give it to someone else. And so they're getting that process rolling. So this would seem like a good time to share that good news.
Thank you.
Yep. So the quarter ends March 4th. On the calendar, it says that the third quarter progress reports and first day of parent-teacher conferences. Is that correct? No. On what is February 1st? First day of.
That's mid-quarter.
Okay. Well, given the way the votes have been going and how, please take into consideration how many subs we don't have. And we are not a babysitting service. We can do a lot better at teaching by being able to have students consistently working at home as long as they have the laptops and they can get live stream from their teachers. Our teachers will be safer. We are not done with the Christmas, the holidays effect. I want to make a motion that we are continuing to be virtual, I guess is the appropriate terminology, through March 4th.
Is that the first quarter?
That's through the quarter.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Ms. Weiser, second by Ms. Shumway. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Jacks?
Some couple questions, Dr. Dorner. If the school district did go back to the hybrid model, what are your major concerns? We kind of addressed some of them, I think, but if the things that really stand out, one or two things that really stand out, what would those concerns be?
Well,
and what kind of a recommendation do you have at this point?
I would, I did speak at length with our principals again this morning. We speak on a regular basis, and they're, they speak with their staffs on a regular basis. We talked about really knowing the pulse of the campus that they lead, really knowing how their folks feel. We conducted our survey, as you know, over the break, and it's about 40% want us to follow virtual and the Arizona dashboard. But when you talk to the principals, all but two of them prefer, and in most cases, more of their staff prefer the AB because they feel like the virtual, the learning, the teaching, the lessons, the engagement is not as optimal, obviously, virtually as it is live, that you can socially distance kiddos. Ron is right. If you have a large class and there's 35 plus and they all show up and you have a room the size of some of the ones at Lee Williams, that would be a concern, Mr. Jacks, that they can't socially distance, but the majority of classes across the district can. If we were to go to AB, I would suggest that we have a limit so that they do have the ability to socially distance. So that's one concern. If we go virtual, that we really are losing some valuable face-to-face instruction time. But equal concern, and the principals do agree on this when we talk about it, even though they're for AB, we all agree. Even I think the people who are asking for virtual, that it's better to have kids. The staffing is a concern. We are losing, even without our kids here, and a few of the times where we've had positives over the last 2 weeks, we lose 4, 5, 6 staff members for close contact. So if I can use Ron since he's here, if he turns out positive and then we do a trace contacting with him, he might give me 4 names and then we're down 4 staff members for a few days. So that the biggest concern is the staffing and the juggling. If we don't have staff, we can't have kids. The AB does work as far as I don't recommend all kids in school. I'll start there. We are not ready to have all of the kids in class, in crowded classrooms with teachers. AB would be the next most optimal, and the challenge would be staffing.
How do you think the district could overcome the substitute situations? Historically, I believe, even in good times, when we had everything normal, it was an average daily use of substitutes in the 35 to 40.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
And we used to have a pool of substitutes that would be up around
75,
70,
80,
65,
yep.
70, 80, something like that. So if you only have 35, and given the situations that we have now, how would you overcome that barrier?
Well, the way we ran into that situation prior to Christmas break. We really, between Thanksgiving and Christmas break, faced that exact challenge. And we talked, with our staffs and our principals and said, do we want to go virtual now? Because we're heading for red. We could see it. We were on the bubble. Or do you want to get through? And everybody agreed to get through. But what that meant was we had a lot of uncovered classes, like I showed at the December 30th meeting. And how they overcame it was it was all hands on deck. In some cases, if it's A day and there are 2 A English teachers and this A English teacher is positive and there was no sub, I would take her half and my half, and now I'm a teacher with a hole. And so we had that a lot at the secondary. We have a lot of paraprofessionals that would be covering classes, principals, office managers, all hands on deck. Anybody in the campus was pitching in. I did ask that question on the classified survey. Have you been asked to cover a class. A lot of them were not applicable because, bus drivers aren't covering classes and our facilities crew is not covering classes. But of those who were, many of them were asked to cover classes, and I asked, how often are you covering classes? And I think the choices were rarely, on a regular basis, or all the time. And there was a good majority of them that said they were having to cover classes regularly, some rarely and some all the time, but a lot of them regularly. So, I mean, when we're faced with the challenge, we meet it, and our staff has risen to the challenge since last March. District staff, school staff, teaching staff, bus driving staff, all of them. But it is difficult, and it's at this particular stage in the game extraordinarily difficult.
Yeah, it is interesting times, looking what's kind of going on. When you look at nationally, you got President-elect Biden coming in saying we got to get kids back in school. Got a new Secretary of Education, or at least looks like we do, with Miguel Cardona. He says we got to get kids back in school. Governor Ducey comes out, says we got to get kids back in school. And oh, by the way, if you leave classrooms open,
We're not funding you.
We're not going to fund you.
Yes.
So threatening funding.
Yep.
You got the AIA that said we're going to play winter sports. And so that looks like, that's going on. So you got all these different components, and we've already talked about, we have a lot of teachers that would like to have the students back.
Yep.
We have a lot of administrators that like to have the students back.
Yep.
We got parents that would like to have the students back.
Yep.
And yet we have these challenges.
Yes.
I have a question, Dr. Dorner. On the lack of teachers, how many are contributed to the fear of being in the classroom?
The substitute teachers, I would say at the most.
Oh, you told us.
I think it was
You
8
told
that
us.
were on hold.
I
But
apologize.
keeping in mind, we're only at 56 total, which is down. So I think we have fewer applicants and fewer people coming to want to be subs because of the situation. That's a theory. I don't have evidence on that, unless Ms. Moreski has some, but people don't tell us why they're not applying because we haven't met them to know that.
Okay. So then all of our regular teachers are in the classroom.
Yes. Well, we've had a few teachers over the course of the year. I think we're losing, we've had typical transition of teachers. We have one that's leaving now to move back east for a personal reason and those kinds of things. But we have had a few leave due to fear early on in the year. Just not many though, not as many as we expected.
Doctor, I had an operational question. So if you have a teacher who is out of the classroom because they have to quarantine, they feel great, they want to be in the classroom, but they can't because they have to quarantine. So it's a Monday, it's an A day, they've got 12 kids in the classroom. Does that teacher can't get on Zoom and remote in and teach that class while they're quarantined?
They could, but then we're double staffing. That still takes human resources. You'd have to have somebody in the room with the kids, with the teacher at home. Like we could do that now. This is what the last 2 weeks have been beneficial for. We have teachers that have had to quarantine, but while they're out for their 2 or 3 days, they can still Zoom in, feed in, and do the virtual lessons. So we lose a little bit we don't lose as much instruction time as we would if they just had to leave.
Okay.
But we could do that. We could have a sub in the room and a teacher at home, and if they were willing, Zoom in.
I just remember when you said all hands on deck, and you had mentioned like an office personnel might be in the classroom. I didn't know what instruction the students were receiving, if the teacher was zooming in and there was someone else sitting in the classroom.
There's a whole variety of that. We've had teachers where we have subs in the room and they do the whole lesson via Zoom. Their face is on a screen in the room and it's worked really well. But we've had others that couldn't do that, or they weren't at the physical level.
It's a fluid situation, right? There's just a different situation for.
Yeah, there is. It's.
You have to tackle.
Yeah, we have. It's an extraordinary time. I don't know, Angela, if you remember the number you told me, but I believe it's like 267. We've processed 267 COVID events with staff since August. And processing a COVID situation with a staff, a singular, takes up to hours, right? Times that times 267, and then build in, making sure there's coverage. We lost a big number of bus drivers recently. If you don't have bus drivers, you can't get the kids to school, right? So it's a very fluid, very, everybody working on all cylinders, all brain cells going at all times in every department constantly. We need it to end. We, meaning the whole world, needs this thing to end.
Superintendent Dornan, we reached just under 300 cases that we were processing today.
That could be quarantine, could be positive, but it's a process. Yeah. I don't know if I answered fully what you asked me, Mr. Jackson.
So we do have a motion and a second. Do we have any other further discussion on the motion?
I would like to add a couple things.
Well, did you have something? Sorry, you want Ms. Shumway to speak?
I'll speak after her.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Shumway, go ahead.
So the number of subs is definitely concerning. I remember several times when I was teaching that I was told that we have no subs available. And I remember one particular day where I was using the garbage can after a math lesson to transition to a language arts lesson to vomit because we had no subs. And that was in 2015. So, and that's when we had 80 subs. That was a normal, fall semester. So to only have 30 some usable subs in the middle of a pandemic, that's a concern. Now subs are, trained. They have a certificate that they have to obtain. Office staff does not have that. Coaches don't have that. People who are covering classes don't necessarily have that. So you say, we want our kids in school. Well, what you mean is you want our students to learn. And if we're quote unquote covering classes by using janitorial staff, we're not achieving that. What we're doing is we're putting students in a small area, hoping they'll keep their masks on when they're being babysat because learning isn't taking place. To bring up the vaccine, it takes two. We have the Moderna vaccine available to us. So you need the first vaccine, then 28 days later, you get the second vaccine, and you are not immune until 2 weeks after the second vaccine. So we are talking at least 40 some days from the time they get their first vaccine. So let's keep that in mind. While yay, we're moving the vaccines along, there's still a lag time. So I think the proposed motion does take that into account. And once are we keeping track of those staff and teachers that are choosing to get vaccinated? So we have an idea of the percentage that are vaccinated by district, by school?
No, we can ask for them to volunteer to tell us that, but I think we'd have to check with legal if we can require them to tell us that.
Perhaps the health department can also provide some numbers. I'm sure they're keeping track.
I don't know.
We don't need people.
It's pretty disorganized, Board Member Shumway. I don't know how they're collecting it because it changes by the day and hour, it seems.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, hopefully someone is keeping track because we don't need names. We definitely don't need names, but it would be nice to know the percentage so that we can, as a board member, as a board, use data. That's what we value. As a matter of fact, we expect our staff to have data meetings. I remember when I was a teacher, monthly data meetings, going over those quarterly quizzes. Data was very important to this district. So I hope that this board continues to value data and the information that we have. And the information that we have says that we're in trouble staffing wise. and COVID problem wise in the community spread. So I hope we can make a smart, data driven decision tonight.
I have another
Ms.
question.
Young? Yes.
Yes, Dr. Dorner, if we go to 100% virtual, will we continue to get COVID funding?
Well, that's a good question, Board Member Young. I would assume so. And Aaron, you can jump in. I mean, we're funded for this year.
Yes,
We have our COVID funding,
you're still instructing as well.
right? And we have our distance learning plan that has been improved. So I'm not quite certain what Mr. Ducey's comments truly meant yesterday. We discussed it in our principals meeting today, and we have some questions that we're going to send to Superintendent Hoffman regarding it. But I believe we will be funded through the end of this year, unless you hear otherwise, Mr. Sherman.
Yeah, and ASBA responded as well today to Ducey's
Right.
statements. Doesn't seem anything more than political fodder to me, but
Right.
they're not going to pull our funding for this year. We're midstream. Payments are being made. All of the above.
He actually did clarify with some media that what he meant was when districts went virtual, they lost students. And what he was saying is he's not going to compensate districts for lost students, especially as we come up to the 100-day mark. So he wasn't saying he was going to pull funding. What he was saying, or what he clarified and should have said better, was that they will continue to fund based on student attendance. And if student attendance went down, then you're not going to be compensated for the difference.
But what we talked about in our principals meeting, and that's a great point, and that's exactly right. If we lose our kids, we lose our funding, which is normal on the 100th day. But by leaving the decision to be live or virtual to local boards, there are boards who have decided to go live, and I took a poll. I printed all the gain loss reports by school, and we looked at them this morning with our administrators and the students we lost. And I asked, the administrators, do you know the story behind every loss? Because when I was a principal, if I lost a single kid, it was devastating. I wanted to know why, so that I could do better as a school leader if I lost him or her due to my lack of leadership or school. So what I was told this morning was we lost several families just this last week. I think 11 between a couple of 2-3 families to a nearby district that is live. So we will lose funding in that sense, because we are losing kids to districts that are either going live or plan to go live. So I guess, rethinking what you asked me and the point that Jen made, which is correct, losing kids will decrease our funding, and we are losing kids because we're virtual.
Ms. Weiser?
Just to comment on that, though, we do lose kids this time of year anyway.
Yes, but that's why I asked the question, why?
Yeah.
Because we lost 36 kids that were moving out of state or to some transient reason here, there, or the other. We know that.
Right.
So then you look at who left and didn't need to leave. We had lost kids from Surbat to Wallapai or Manzanita, to Black Mountain. That's all great. We focus in on the ones that there really isn't a good reason to lose because they went somewhere local outside of our district.
Well, a lot of the students that we lost because we were going live, we lost last semester.
We lost some students for going live also.
Correct.
So this discussion is now bringing up to me also then the bus drivers you mentioned. It's not just subs for teachers, it's also subs for bus drivers.
And there are no subs for bus drivers other than the dispatchers. Is that correct? Okay.
So how do we deal with those students who rely on the bus?
We worked with HR and transportation to make sure that we had enough bus drivers come on the 19th to make sure we cover all our routes, and we do, and we have 4 extra right now.
Okay, so basically we could have 4 bus drivers stay home for quarantine
Sure,
and have those routes covered.
correct.
We've got a high rate of it in transportation already. Not that, I don't want to call that good news, but we should be in decent shape because many of them have been through the process, if that makes sense.
Through the process,
Right, they've
Sorry.
either been a positive COVID case,
or because if they're quarantined, then
they wouldn't necessarily fall into
Right.
that. Mhm. I think Mr. Sherman wanted to add
Yes,
something.
Mr. Sherman.
I just want to mention that the federal funding has more than made up for any sort of losses in revenue. And what they're calling CARES Act 2 and ESSER 2 looks like it's going to dwarf Part 1 by maybe as much as 6 times. So when you talk about funding, just so you understand, every single COVID purchase we've made to this point, to December 30th, I've tied to federal funding. Our district at this point hasn't had to spend a cent on COVID-related things that wasn't provided by the feds. So you may want to keep that in mind.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. So we do have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? So to restate the motion is to move to a virtual model till the end of this quarter, correct? Which is, what's the date? March 3rd?
March 4th.
March 4th.
Nope, it is, third quarter ends March 11th.
March 11th.
That's when, and that's when intercession starts?
The 1 week, it's reduced to 1 week to make up days for our delayed start last summer.
Maybe
Is that your
looking at
motion,
an older
Ms.
one.
Wagner? March 11th.
Yeah, the calendar that showed, yeah.
Okay, do we have any other discussion on this motion? So seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Shumway, you can go first. So yes, you support the motion. No, you're against the motion.
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Shumway. Ms. Weiser?
Yes.
I vote no against the motion. Ms. Young?
No.
Ms. Young votes no. Mr. Jackson?
No.
Mr. Jackson votes no. So the motion fails.
I'd like to
2
make
to
another
3.
motion.
Do we have another motion?
I'd like to make another motion that we remain virtual through the end of January.
Do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
So we have a motion and a second by Ms. Shumway. Any discussion on this motion? Through, what was your date?
The end of January, so new teacher work, 1/2, I don't know what that is talking about, but January 29th would be 28th would be the last instruction day in January. And the reasoning for that is that it gives our teachers time, staff who wants it, time to go get those vaccinations at least started.
Okay, so the motion is to, I'm sorry, what was your date? Remain
Virtual through January 29th is the last.
through January 29th. And it was seconded by Ms. Shumway. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Shumway?
Yes.
Yes, for Ms. Shumway. Ms. Weiser?
Yes.
I vote no. Mrs. Young?
No.
Mr. Jax?
No.
Mr. Jax votes no. Motion fails 3 to 2. Do we have another motion? I will make the motion just to clarify. I believe in at the last board meeting, the decision was to move to the hybrid model on beginning January 19th, but I'm going to make a motion just to clarify that. So my motion will be that we move to the hybrid or AB model beginning January 19th through the end of the 3rd quarter. So do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can you repeat that?
Yes, the motion was to move to the hybrid or AB model beginning January 19th through the end of the 3rd quarter.
What is the
Seconded
end
by
of the
Ms.
3rd
Young.
quarter?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Ms. Shumway.
What is the end of the 3rd quarter?
The date is March 11th?
March 11th.
March 11th is the end of the 3rd quarter.
When is the next board meeting?
Well, we just voted on that. It would be the 2nd Tuesday, February 9th.
No, in March.
The board meeting in March would be March 9th. I don't have a calendar in front of me, sorry. Sometimes you do change that meeting because of spring break. I don't know when spring break is this year, but is it during that time? So
No, intercession's after the 11th, isn't it, Dr. Donner?
Just for 1 week.
And are we in discussion right now?
we have a motion and a second, so we are in discussion. You were asking questions.
Dr. Lucero, can you provide a reason for that? Any data that you can point to show that we can, one, staff our classrooms, two, that we have a downward trend in the disease, three, that we have any vaccination process or progress going on? Can you provide any data as to why you made that motion?
I've provided comments through several board meetings through several months, and so I stand by those.
It's January. Do you have any January motions or comments or data?
I just made a January motion.
Comments, data.
No, I do not. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion?
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Jacks.
Would Dr. Dorner still have her emergency, what's a good word? Emergency.
Superpower?
Yeah, thank you very much. Would Dr. Dorner still have her emergency power that that she could use if it gets to a point where it would be necessary to go virtual?
Yes, are you asking Dr. Dorner, Mr. Jacks?
I'm asking
in
the board.
general. I believe the board has expressed that before, and yes, I would believe so. And Dr. Dorner, when she does that, always tries to contact us or have a meeting scheduled.
We've
if
never
possible.
revoked. We've never revoked that.
Right.
Okay.
And should we as a board give her guidance as to what qualifies as an emergency to move us from this motion into a virtual?
No, I think she's able to use her discretion as the superintendent. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, we will do a roll call vote. Mrs. Shumway.
No.
Ms. Shumway, no. Ms. Weiser.
No.
I vote yes. Ms. Young.
Yes.
Mr. Jacks.
Yes.
So the motion passes 3-2. We will move on to item 19, which is to approve the listed donations.
I make a motion to approve the donations with our tremendous approval. This has been a difficult time for everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Weiser. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion, second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And second
I'll second.
by Ms. Weiser. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.